You're listening to a Zone Radio podcast, zoneradio.co.za.
As promised, I've got a very interesting young man in the studio with me today, Claudio Chiste. Italian name. Welcome to Zone Radio, Claudio.
Thank you very much for having me.
Claudio, I'm intrigued by this book. First of all, you lived locally because you were in the Navy for 10 years, a whole decade. You were permanent force, which has, first of all, intrigued me. One of our admirals did the intro to your book, which is pretty cool. So you're kind of a local boy, in a way.
Now that you put it that way, Jacques, you just remind me that I'm so blessed to be back in the mother city. Yes.
Yeah, and the Deep South especially, it rocks. I love the Deep South. But now I'm intrigued. From naval to author, how did that happen? I mean, Navy, and now you're an author, and you're doing this professionally. You've got 3 books that you're planning, and you've gone. It's international. It's not just local. You're going big. So how did that come about?
Well, there is a golden thread, and I'd say that my time in the Navy, the focus was on leadership. That was the sort of the thrust and the interest where I positioned myself, putting my hand up for tasks and undertakings. And when I left, I then moved to England and I studied. I had to completely sort of reinvent myself, which took 3.5, 4 years. And then I started in banking. But when I entered, that was during the subprime. And what happened then was that there were severe job losses. And I had friends making fun of me, saying, you know, you're going into banking. What do you call a banker who irons 5 shirts in a row? Because I'd always iron my shirts from the Navy, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, that discipline stays with you for the rest of your life, doesn't it?
And they would say, that's an optimist. But regardless, when I entered, the banks that I was part of, they actually outperformed the market. One was Investec, South African, and Intesa. And what I saw there was lessons I learned from the Navy, where all the narrative and everywhere you looked, the literature was saying something else. There was a focus on servant, transformational leader. That was a buzzword, especially from the heyday post-Mandela.
Yeah.
However, they were missing a gap of what was missing. I felt that they did not get the entire picture. And this is what gave birth to this book with this concept of ownership-driven leadership.
Incredible journey, and just shows you as well that no experience ever goes wasted. What you do, people think, oh, I just wasted a year doing that. There's always a reason for it. Maybe not right now, but in retrospect, I believe nothing's wasted. It's all a learning curve, and you learn from every experience that you have. I just quickly want to tell the readers again, Claudio's book is called The Rise of the Warrior Leader. And if anybody has got any questions for him, you are welcome to give us a WhatsApp message in the studio on 072 447 8044. Claudio, I just read the intro to your book. And I saw stuff there. Now, I've just given you a little bit of a rundown. I'm a very anti-establishment kind of person. Now, this book, is it all about personal leadership, or is this globally? Because I saw stuff there like a responsible morality. Now, worldwide, people have lost faith in leaders, in their leadership. They just don't have faith in our leaders anymore. Do you touch on that?
Yes, and if I can share,
yes, please.
The way, making it really simple, if psychologists have a way, I would say, with Freud and with Jung, it's beautiful, but it's not something you can just download in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. It's a lifelong. Jung definitely is a lifelong. You'd never stop. Yeah.
So what I've tried to do is to simplify it so it's very conceptual, so that even somebody who's not educated or hasn't even finished high school can still conceptualize. And to answer your questions, looking at it in the 3 selves. The one is who you wish you could be, that dream, your ideal self. And the second, the actual. And depending on who you meet, where you trust somebody or you don't, that mask, the layers will be more or less. You'll shine through your true self. Depending on how much you trust. You're not going to tell your deep, dark secrets to somebody you don't trust. So it's actual. And then the third, the internal, is that core, is your true self. And that is when you are alone. And it's just about connecting that true self, and so that shows up with that authenticity, but also getting that in check, and that ties in with responsible morality, which is, and this took me a while. I also served on the ethics committee of Coaches and Mentors of South Africa.
Okay.
And only when I served on the ethics committee
There's a boy of many talents, sure.
did I understand ethics and morality, how that differs. Where morality is the individual, so depending on how you're raised, etc., your culture, and then the ethics is the collective. So 10 people have different moralities,
Yeah.
Morals, you say, but collective, we cannot have one collective morality. That's called the ethics, because we all have to respect each other's background and come to a standard agreed framework of mutual respect and ethics.
Very important. That mutual respect is essential. Now, there was one word in that page that I got that jumped out at me, and that's accountability. I believe we all have to live with integrity. True honesty is living with integrity. Live like someone's always watching you. That throwing that stompy away, you think no one's going to see you. Someone's watching. You've got to live like someone's always watching. Whatever you do, no matter how small, how big. And that word jumped out at me, accountability. And that's not just for leaders, that's for everybody, every single person. What is your take on accountability with leadership?
So really this leadership model is underpinned by ownership. Mm-hmm. And ownership here, it's intentional of the word, the usage, because there's responsibility and accountability. And if you ask 5 different people, we kind of conceptually know what it is, but you're going to get 5 different answers. So ownership is an umbrella term which captures both accountability and responsibility. Uh-huh. And there's 2 perspectives of that. One is the leader. If we look at a triangle, bottom left, the I own who I am.
I like your triangle, by the way, because you can visualize, then it's easier to remember, and it makes sense.
And as the Latins say, omni trium perfectum, there's perfection in 3. It's the strongest shape in the world, and the US Marines always do 3.
Yeah.
Because the human mind, after 5, 7, we start getting confused, and it's 2, 3, simple. So the bottom left of the triangle is I. I need to sort out who I am first, because who I am is how I will lead, especially when I'm under pressure. And the top is the mission. That is what people usually focus when they talk about leadership. That's the tools to lead. And the third, bottom right, is the collective. So ownership, I have to own who I am. I have to own the mission. And bottom right, I have to own the result, the culture. I can't start pointing fingers and saying, I told you, I didn't agree with you. It's all your fault. But I have that accountability.
We'll pass the buck, yeah. We all need a scapegoat. Accountability, taking responsibility for yourself, for your decisions.
Yeah, so that's the perspective of the leader. But now the leader also has to inspire this in the collective so that they can be empowered. And no matter how junior they are, their task is important. Same in a watch, all different sizes with the cogs. Mm-hmm. If the smallest cog does not function, the watch does not work. Yep. So it has to inspire that in the collective as well. And by doing so, that the consequence is they move up Maslow. They feel towards empowerment. They feel they've got a purpose. So that's the twofold perspective. And by doing that, the connection between the pyramid, the triangle actually gets thicker. And why is this important? Because that's where the trust lies. Because I know you care about me and you want me to succeed. Because when there's tough times and we have the coronavirus command council takes over and they've got access to the kitty, I trust you, because in the good times or business as usual, you focused on empowering me and giving me the tools. Now that there's a crisis, go ahead. I trust you. You will look after me. But the deal is that once the crisis is over, you're going to give me back the power and focus on empowerment.
Mm-hmm. What is your take on current global leadership? Just out of interest now, going off the topic of your book, just for a moment, because you seem to be you've studied now the whole thing of leadership, your book. And by the way, we said just now, it's just not one book. This is a trilogy, basically, this book.
Yes, this one, Rise of the Warrior Leader, focuses specifically on leadership, and also to add that it's done fairly well. It's won the Los Angeles Book Festival with gold.
Oh, well done.
And thank you. And New England, Boston gold.
Sure.
And California.
You go, young man. Excellent.
And then a series of silvers and 1 bronze.
Wow.
But those were the golds. So to answer your question, I actually wrote an article 2 days ago looking at Trump and Harris.
Yeah.
Based on ownership-driven leadership.
Okay.
And where both of them fell short. So where I'm seeing specifically 2 things. Own who you are. Own the mission, own the result. Mm-hmm. Own the result. Now, with Trump, with the election, he may know something we do not know. Maybe there was rigging, but he didn't own it. There was a way to say, I don't agree, but I'm going to follow protocol. So he did not entirely own the result.
Yeah.
Then Harris, I'm saying, it's actually Biden, but I'm saying Biden dash Harris, because Biden's almost out of the picture now. When they did the withdrawal of Afghanistan, they tried to control the narrative that, no, it was all organized. We know it was a shambles. Everybody, but except they think they're controlling the narrative, but now we all have access to social media. You cannot control the narrative. It's actually looking a bit disingenuous, and it's not looking authentic.
Only 22% of the regional audience still does mainstream. Only 22% worldwide. That's the major shift that's happened. Yeah, so this makes it all very interesting, that for one.
Yeah, and the reason why I highlighted it wasn't to say that they're not, that they're bad, because we all can all improve, but it was to be constructive, and whoever wins next term, this is what they need to work on to get the ownership triad, which I refer to it, because these are the three pillars. These all three need to be strong. If the one is weak, the
it
entire
collapses. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Now you also go on there in your book to talk about civilization's potential collapse, which is like, we don't want to go into fear, but natural disaster, plague, whatever. It can all happen at any moment. Anything. I live every day like anything can happen at any moment. Oh, it can be on a global scale as well. Tell us a bit more about that without giving people heebie-jeebies.
So there's servant leadership. There's many different theories. So you take a step back, just to give you a broad perspective. This model is seen on an ownership continuum. So it's not binary. It's a spectrum. In the business as usual, we share ownership. Our job is to empower people so that each person, and I don't want to call them followers because everybody is a leader in their own right.
No, absolutely.
Feels empowered, and we shared ownership. Our country, you have a stake. Our organization, you have a stake. But in a crisis, I'm going to take the ownership because we need to centralize decision making. So now the continuum goes to total ownership. But once the crisis is over, continue to shared ownership. So it's always with that in mind. And when the collapse of civilization, it's once we are successful, we can't believe our own greatness. Or once we start believing that it's actually because we are so special, that's when the complacency kicks in. And an organization shows, there's been research that, the one research was 120 to 150 years of a civilization peaking, and then it changes. And if we look, it was only the mid-1800s where the dollar surpassed the sterling. So it's not as if the US has been forever supreme.
No,
It's our great-grandfathers lived through it. So the point is that is humility, and the servant leader, which is the shared ownership, and the warrior leader is the total ownership. That's making tough decisions, unpopular decisions, always with the intention of the collective at heart. So you always remain a servant and a steward, even though you're a warrior, because you're a servant steward first. But what I'm getting at is that a servant, you need to be authentic. There's dimensions, 6 dimensions, and forms the acronym ARISES. So very easy to remember. And the A is for authenticity. And part of authenticity is that self-awareness, self-acceptance, and humility. And when we don't have that, when we start believing our own greatness, similar to the civilization, that's where the complacency kicks in and the decline.
The collapse starts. The rot starts. It's actually a rot, not a collapse. Now, 3 books. So, the other 2, how do they all fit in? Tell us a bit more. What if people are going to read this one, they're going to obviously want to read the other 2. So give us a bit of an overview, please.
Yes, so Rise of the Warrior Leader was launched approximately 9 months ago or so, and that is available exclusive books nationwide in South Africa, and Wordsworth Books nationwide, and also Clark's in Long Street. So the next one I'm working on is Mental Toughness, and that's called Mental Toughness of a Warrior. And the third one, which will be next year, is No Blame Culture.
Ooh.
But they all tie in.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned the pyramid.
No blame culture. Now that rings all kinds of conjures up. I want to know more about that.
So they all tie in, because if you picture this triangle, the bottom left is the I, me. That's your character. That is own who you are. That is mental toughness. And that's the book that I'm currently finishing. And the top of the pyramid, Own the Mission, that's the leadership. That's the book which is available
The Warrior
now.
Leader.
And the bottom right is the we, the collective, the culture. And that is the no blame culture, which will be the successive book.
Okay, and that is where we're all working towards, that culture of responsibility, everyone taking responsibility collectively. Sounds like a utopian. We're getting there. I'm a great believer. I'm an eternal optimist, okay, Claudio? So I'm truly believing we are busy creating a more beautiful world. Some of us already living in that beautiful world. Our minds are incredibly strong. So yeah, and I see that you touch on a spirituality in your book. You mention spirituality, transcendental spirituality. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Definitely. You want to touch on that for us?
Certainly.
Your take on all of that.
Now, I think there were two realizations. The one was, let me just get my chronological order, was when I had some deals that were taking strain, majors, but I had to sort these out, and I had to spruce up to meet a very senior individual, like 7 o'clock breakfast, and in order to sort certain things out. And I remember that on my way to the meeting, there was so much pressure, I actually had a blood nose, and I came back, and my wife, what's going on?
Stress.
So I said, no, I'm just going to shower because I have to clean my shirt. And I did that. So I put on a new shirt and off I went again. And then when I left,
You got sick.
I got sick along the road.
Physically sick.
And
ill.
on the way and I came back. And my wife said, what's going on? I said, no, I have to freshen up because she said, no, I think you need to call in. I said, no, I said I'll be there at 7 a.m. I'm going to be there at 7 a.m. So then I went.
Maak klaar wat ons begin het.
Yes, I was on the underground in the tube, and I was taking deep breath because being in the Navy, being seasick, I know how to self-regulate.
Yes.
So I was just breathing. Everybody was watching me. Well, what's going on with this individual? But I made it to the meeting, and I got the job done. It went very well. But on my way, I thought, one day I need to write a book to share these experiences for mental toughness, to share it. And then in February 2017, I was the chairman for England for military veterans while I was a banker. In my spare time, arranging this parade for the centenary where Princess Anne was there, Jeff Radebe from the presidency, and I had to do a speech. This is a big deal. The Navy sent a whole ship.
Yeah.
So I stayed up till 3 a.m., booked a hotel, took leave off of work from the bank, and I prepared my speech. And on the morning, they cut me from the speech. The attaché came up to me and said, oh, by the way, we cut you. I said, why? He said, no, you don't have time. And I was so
disappointed,
annoyed. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to turn this into a positive. So that speech became the foundation for the mental toughness book, which I'm currently. So this book,
I love that.
I started that in 2017. Yeah. So this wasn't just and the leadership book was actually supposed to be a PhD, but during hard lockdown, I had a sort of a difference of opinion with my supervisor at the university, and I said, no, the servant leadership model is limited, and she said to me, well, who are you to challenge it? So I said, well, that's the whole point. And anyway, this song and dance went on for a year. I had to change this. And afterwards I thought, no, I'm going to...
Doesn't feel true to you.
Yes,
to
this
your
is going to be a book.
Ideals.
I'm going to push it out because... And then exactly what I said was that all I'm saying is that servant leadership is limited model. In crisis, you're not a servant leader. You need to take action. And that was... And since then, I've had University of Stellenbosch and Pretoria come forward and said, hey, do you still want to do that PhD? We will support you.
Wow.
And now I'm starting in January along these terms.
It's amazing what something like a speech being cancelled, and look where it's led to. Life, universe works in mysterious ways. Okay, so you've told us about your books, where people can get hold of it. Are you going on a tour to promote?
No, I did already. Yes, so the launch was exclusive books in Rosebank, Joburg, and I did also Namibia and in Cape Town.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take this book home. I love reading. I'm going to read it. And I'm a very constructive when I do crits. And I will give an honest opinion to my readers. They know what I like. And well, 5 years, I think I know my listeners. So, Claudio, thank you very, very much for coming in and chatting to us about this incredible, how it came about. local Navy boykie, doing good. I am super chuffed, and we wish you all the best with all three of your books.
Thank you for having me, Jacques. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
You're listening to a Zone Radio podcast. zoneradio.co.za